The 2-0. High drive, center field, deep, going back Wells, looking up, see ya!
Nothing gets the crowd more excited than a home run.
There it goes, the long drive. If it stays fair, home run!
It's just exciting here. Everybody's watching you running around the bases. It's a look at me and look what I've done, and it's a good feeling.
Stanton drives it left field, absolutely crushed.
I think baseball players, when they hit it, kind of feel like, you know, this is what the Lord put me here to do.
Ortiz into deep right field. Back is Sheffield. We'll see you later tonight. And that ball is belted. That may be in the upper deck.
For guys that are home run hitters, they know when the ball leaves the bat.
You just did everything right in that swing and that timing and everything that you could have done in that box to obviously hit a home run.
Hi, Top.
Chicks dig the long ball.
I think the home run, everyone thinks offense. Everyone likes to see the guy that's able to hit the ball a country mile.
Torres drives it, deep left center field. Taylor back, near the wall. It's out of here!
Whether it's a little league field in a small town ballpark, a minor league city in the middle of nowhere, the bright lights of the major leagues, or the Hall of Fame up in Cooperstown, baseball has captivated people throughout America for generations. The history of baseball is an integral part of American history, and you can't tell the story of baseball history without the home run. Ask any baseball fan, and they have a home run story for you.
That's easy. I went to Game 7 of the 2003 ALCS, so I saw Aaron Boone hit the home run that won the Yankees the pennant.
Leading by 3 as Boone hits it to deep left. That might send the Yankees to the World Series. Boone, a hero in Game 7.
I mean, I think the McGuire home run against Randy Johnson in the Kingdome.
2 pitch to McGuire, swing and a high fly ball belted, and I mean belted deep to left field into the upper deck. My, oh my!
Mike Piazza's home run that he hit for the Mets after 9/11, the first game back.
Lopez wants it away, and it's hit deep to left center. Andrew Jones on the run. This one has a chance. Home run! Mike Piazza, and the Mets lead 3-2.
It might be the one that Roy Hobbs hit in the natural, knocked the lights out.
There's no doubt that the home run is one of the defining parts of baseball. And it's been the way that runs were scored back in the early days of baseball, right?
Well, certainly not by the home run.
So how were runs scored in the early 1900s?
You know, in the early days in baseball, no one even gave any thought to the home run.
It was more of a scientific game of just moving the runners along, station by station.
In the really early days, the game was played on open lots. So we just try to hit the ball over the fielder's head and run.
You have the hit and run, you have stolen base, you have all of that stuff, but it certainly wasn't swing for the fences. It was more of an idea of hit, like Wee Willie Keeler said, hitting them where they ain't, right?
Hitters generally swung down on the ball. The Baltimore chop, which was an intentional bouncer, was a weapon, was an offensive weapon, and so was bunting.
It wasn't easy to hit home runs in what historians call the dead ball era.
Ball would get beaten up, it would get dirty, it would get stuffed, it would get bent, it would be brown and hard to see by the end of the game.
You might not change a ball for the entire game. So by the 7th or 8th inning, the ball was dirty and muddy, and it was stained with tobacco juice from the pitcher throwing a spitball.
Imagine you're in your living room and you've got a bat and you hit one of the throw pillows from your sofa with the as hard as you can. Well, it's only going to go a certain distance. No matter what you do or how hard you hit it, it's not going to go 100 feet. And that was what they faced with the baseball.
The home run was still a part of the game, but the game's earliest sluggers don't have a ton of notoriety.
Frank Baker led the American League in home runs 4 years in a row without hitting more than 12. And in those days, Only the real fanatics would know who led the league in home runs the year before. It's the way you would think of who led the league in triples, now.
So who was baseball's first home run king?
Roger Connor was the first great home run slugger. He actually held the career record before Babe Ruth. 138 home runs between 1880 and 1899.
Just for some perspective, Cubs third baseman Chris Bryant has hit 138 home runs in 5 seasons. The home run was truly a novelty act in the beginning of baseball, but one man changed that for good.
It's Babe Ruth. There's no question that's Babe Ruth.
So yeah, he comes up with the Red Sox in 1914, and he is primarily a pitcher at that point.
He was such a good pitcher that there was really no thought of making him a hitter.
He might have been a long-time star just pitching without even bringing hitting into his game.
1918, I believe, is the first year they start to use Babe Ruth as a full-time player. And in fact, 1918 is really the only year he does it where he pitches constantly and he basically plays every day.
He won 13 games on the mound and he led the league in home runs with 11. But in 1919, he really wanted to leave pitching behind.
He even had a point where he told the Red Sox he was quitting because he wanted to be more of a hitter. He didn't want to be interrupted by the fact that I had to pitch every 4th day.
Everything changed when Ruth was sold to the Yankees, who only used him as a position player.
Once he goes to New York, obviously things, it just explode.
In 1920, he hit 54 home runs in 1920. No American League team even hit that much.
He hit like 14% of all the home runs in the American League or something like that. So it would be equivalent, to outdistance your opponents by that much. It would be the equivalent of Barry Bonds hitting 430 home runs the year he hit 73. That's how many more Babe Ruth hit than everybody else.
The stars aligned for Babe Ruth to become a national icon.
Coming out of World War I, people wanted to go watch baseball again.
Oh, probably the most famous person in the country?
I would put him after the President of the United States and maybe Charlie Chaplin as the best-known figure in America.
He was the model for an athlete being a celebrity that transcended his sport.
Ruth's home run hitting prowess transformed the game, and he set marks that stood the test of time. 714 career home runs and the single-season home run record.
The 60 mark became a big deal because I think Babe Ruth was making it a big deal and Babe Ruth fans were making it a big deal. There's something about the roundness of the number. When is the year going to come that he hits 60? And of course, that came in 1927, right when he was right about at his prime.
Babe Ruth's single-season record stood for 33 years until it came under assault by Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle, a pair of Yankees teammates in 1961.
The pulse of the nation was just so transfixed on the Mantle-Maris home run race.
61 starts off with a lot of great hope, too, and it soon becomes apparent with Mantle out in front that perhaps a run could be made for Babe Ruth's mark. And the press ate it up.
So there was kind of that little human drama to it, that soap opera to it, that they were guys on the same team, that it was the newcomer versus the established star.
The media really wanted to make it pit them against one another as Mantle versus Maris, and Maris had a hard time dealing with that double-pronged attack.
There was this element in a fandom that believed, well, A, if anyone's going to break the record, it should be Mantle. But if Maris is going to break the record, well, he should at least smile and have fun with it.
Maris also faced a bit of external pressure from Ford Frick.
Yeah, Ford Frick was the commissioner. He and Babe Ruth had been very close friends when Ford Frick was a sports writer in the 20s and 30s. He noted that the season was a different length, so that should be taken into account. He came up with the idea that there should be 2 records or that there should be an asterisk.
It was really a dumb marketing decision by baseball, which made it seem like they didn't even know what they had in front of them, the most exciting, talked about home run race of ever. So they took a lot of the wind out of it, and that was evident by the small crowd that turned out for the 162nd game.
Just 23,154 fans were in attendance to see Maris swat his 61st home run of the season, breaking Ruth's record in a 1-0 Yankees win, securing his place in home run history.
You know what, you know that Ted Williams is the last person at 400. You know what 56 means when you say it in baseball. You know what 714 means. You know what 755 means. So 61 and 61 became, again, one of those things that any baseball fan, particularly Yankee fans, will never forget.
While Maris took down Ruth's single-season record in the summer of '61, his all-time record would eventually fall thanks to a consistent slugger named Hank Aaron.
Hank Aaron was beautiful to watch. He just had a certain grace about him and a style that was very professional, not flamboyant.
He was just a great hitter. You know, you could take out his 755 home runs, and he would still have 3,000 hits.
Although we don't think of him as this prodigious long ball hitter where you might think of, you know, Ruth and Mantle hitting the ball so far, Henry was a different type of slugger.
He never hit 50 home runs in a year, so it wasn't as though every time he was up you were thinking home run is coming here. But they certainly came with great frequency.
He was a pure hitter who hit a lot of home runs.
Passing that record was an important thing for him, but he was proud of his career in all totality, though. And he'll often say that to you, he was proud of all the numbers he put up, and not just the home runs in terms of his consistency and being one of the most feared hitters that ever lived.
The home run helped make baseball America's pastime, but the game was in trouble following a strike in 1994 that canceled the World Series. With fans furious at the greed between the owners and the players, the home run would be the thing to bring the game off the mat.
The home run chase of '98 was a godsend.
Baseball lost some fans after the strike, and so it really helped kind of blow new life back into the game, remind some people who turned away from the game, who were angry about the strike and having missed the World Series, that I'm not going to watch baseball anymore. Reminded them of why they loved it so much.
It was of great excitement watching that because Maris's number was holy.
Just like in 1961, the home run race of 1998 between Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa captured the imagination of America.
I think that invigorated baseball, right? I think that it had people in New York like us tuning in and looking, hey, what did McGwire do? He was playing in St. Louis. What did Sammy Sosa do? I was playing in Chicago, right?
Fox would have a Saturday game and they would be, let's say it was Yankees Red Sox, and they would cut into it to show you all the at-bats.
The St. Louis Cardinals had their own Mark McGwire home run hotline that he would call up and they'd replay the home runs that he hit the night before.
We, in the lobby of the museum, we were posting the home run numbers, and every day those guys hit home runs. We were posting those numbers up, and it was basically a tracker that was tracking it day by day.
There was this sense going into that year that McGwire had a chance to do something special because he had been such an incredible home run hitter already in his career. Sosa was not.
And those two guys were so wonderful. You could tell that they really respected one another, and they were going back and forth, right? And they were trading the lead, and it was really something. It was really something to watch.
Sosa and McGwire were right there together until the middle of September, when McGwire just went insane and wound up with significantly more home runs than Sosa.
There was something cartoonish about McGwire-Sosa. It sort of seemed to come too easy to them.
We'll get to that elephant in the room in a second, but first, let's skip ahead to 2001, when Barry Bonds broke McGwire's home run record with 73.
It was unbelievable seeing him almost every game. There was another home run hit, another home run hit.
Sammy Sosa was very hard as a left-handed hitter to hit home runs, and he was doing it.
He had a sort of robotic style at that point where it seemed that anything that was in his zone, which was a fairly large zone, he was going to put an amazing swing on the ball.
Every fly ball he seemed to hit was going to be a home run.
Even though Bonds was making history, the mood around baseball was much different than it was just 3 years earlier.
The national reaction was much more lukewarm, I think, than it was for the other guys who were going through that.
Well, you know, like Hank Aaron, he had never he didn't hit 50 in any other year.
Most fans don't have a positive feeling about Barry Bonds breaking that record or the all-time home run record, a few years after that.
More discerning in terms of how they were looking at that. Should we consider Barry Bonds the new single-season home run record? Should we consider him the new career home run record? Is he doing stuff? Is there something going on there?
Barry Bonds, I'll make the argument, was a Hall of Famer before he ever took a needle or did a performance-enhancing drug, and that's why I'd vote for him for the Hall of Fame. But he went from being an all-time great to basically the modern-day Babe Ruth on PEDs, which was remarkable.
When you look back at what happened and you look at the physiques of those players, I mean, people say, well, it's anecdotal. Well, yes, it's anecdotal, but it's also pretty clear that Barry Bonds' head was larger when he was doing that than before and after.
People who are involved with steroids will tell you that it sharpens everything. For a guy that had tremendous eye for the strike zone and tremendous plate discipline, and then to have this added strength, it just created just a home run hitting machine.
Those home runs were hit under false pretenses. Players were on steroids, performance-enhancing drugs were running rampant through baseball at that time, and it does make you look back on it and sort of question it.
And the problem with the steroid era is that it obliterated the record book.
Those two guys hit such a large portion of their home runs in a 4 or 5 year stretch that it was just so obviously tainted.
Do I think steroids played a role? Absolutely. Do I think it's the only reason we saw those huge numbers? No, I don't.
Major League Baseball addressed its steroids problem in the 2000s, but teams went to another angle in pursuit of power: analytics, including the idea of baseball's 3 true outcomes.
3 true outcomes essentially is the outcomes of a plate appearance that don't involve fielders at all. So it's strikeouts, walks, and home runs.
Increasingly, we understand with the benefit of data analytics that trying to hit home runs is a good thing because there's no better outcome than a home run. And of course, it's had this whole cascading effect on the game. Home runs are at a record high.
Nowadays, it's just acceptable to strike out as long as you're hitting home runs.
It's not a matter of playing for a run, it's a matter of playing for the 3-run home run.
So, well, why should we have a guy thrown out trying to steal second base when the next guy might hit a home run? We just cost ourselves 2 runs.
You'd hate to give away one of your 27 outs with a bunt when once every 15 times at bat, the guy's going to hit it out of the ballpark.
They're giving you an out, man. They're just giving it to you. Take it. Say thank you.
Hitters just don't even want to settle for anything less than a home run. So they will not swing at any pitch unless it comes in their home run box. And then they swing for the fences.
In 2019, 35% of all plate appearances ended in one of those 3 things. And there's this big question as to whether that's good or not. The data bears it out that under at least the current version of baseball, this is the right way to play.
You get on base, we win. You don't, we lose.
Teams in pursuit of power have even begun embracing new data metrics, such as exit velocity, which measures how fast the ball comes off a hitter's bat, as well as launch angle.
Launch angle is simply the angle at which the ball comes off the bat. It's not difficult these days for players to essentially optimize their launch angles, to practice swinging the bat on a plane that leads to whatever outcome they're going for.
Every single batted ball ever hit in the history of baseball has had a launch angle. We just couldn't count it. We just couldn't measure it until now.
The invention of StatCast, which was first introduced to Major League Baseball in 2015, allowed teams to quantify those measurements.
Kind of have like different programs we use to check, like to kind of like keep track of our exit velo, our launch angles and stuff like that.
Teams not only use analytics to get the most out of their players, but individual hitters can use the data to come up with their idealized uppercut swing.
The concept is not at all new. Ted Williams was preaching this to many thousands of people who read his book about hitting.
He wrote a book called The Science of Hitting in 1970, where he talks about, we've always heard that the best way to swing is level or down. That's wrong. In Ted Williams' mind, the best way to swing is up. Swing up, swing with an uppercut, try to hit the ball in the air. And that went totally against conventional wisdom at the time.
With Williams' strategy in mind, many hitters in today's game have been able to make swing changes to hit for more power.
Just look at Jeff McNeil this past year, how he made the adjustment. You know, he was a guy that was hitting, what, 341? You know, and all of a sudden the second half adjusted his feet placing where he's putting his hands to try and drive the ball over the fence. His average dropped precipitously. There was a dip there, but the home run rate went up.
Look at J.D. Martinez. This guy was cut by the Astros in spring training of 2013. He emerges as a superstar after changing his swing. J.D. Martinez is probably out of baseball now if he didn't change his swing.
With all this new technology and emphasis on the uppercut swing, home run rates have exploded, with a record 6,776 long balls in 2019, an increase of over 1,700 home runs from 2009.
Or for the home run surge in 2019, the biggest reason was an inadvertent change to the baseball.
The seams were inconsistent. Some had high seams, some had a little bit lower seams, so the drag on the baseball, the balls wouldn't go as far.
Well, the balls are definitely different compared to where we are in AAA. You're getting guys that are hitting 40 home runs in AAA, and you get guys here hitting 19.
No matter what the reason, baseball's home run totals have continued to explode. And the question becomes whether or not that's a good thing.
What is the ideal version of baseball? I don't think we know the answer yet. And that's going to be the big question as we move forward.
Yeah, I think baseball is relying on the home run. I don't think they're bothered by it.
The home run is too sexy in today's game, you know, to not want it.
Hitters not only are conscious of home runs, not only swing for home runs, but they swing exclusively for home runs. That a single or a double is almost a failure.
The home run's excited, but too much of a good thing. If I have too many hot fudge sundaes, I'm going to end up with a bellyache. If I eat too much pizza, I'm going to gain more weight. If anything in excess, if you continue to do it, you're going to devalue it. It's not going to be as special.
You know, nobody ever goes to the ballpark saying, "Boy, I hope somebody works the count today. I hope somebody draws a couple of walks today."
People talk about, oh, baseball's boring and games take so long. Well, walks take long. Strikeouts take a long time, right? So when you couple that kind of takes some of the juice out of the game.
I don't think that the teams or the players are doing anything wrong. My issue is not at all with players or teams, it's with the league. I don't think that the current brand of baseball is the fan-friendliest brand of baseball that's available.
The game, I think, is becoming, you know, more of a long drive contest and less of a golf tournament.
The game is fantastic. It's just changed, just like everything. Just like from the 1900s, 20s to the 40s to the 60s, the game has changed, right? So now this is where the game is. At some point, there'll be kind of a settling back, right? So you go to one extreme, and then you kind of bring back in the middle somewhere.
I just think the game has changed to more of electric plays. So guys are throwing 100 miles per hour, 103 miles per hour. So if a guy connects with a 100-mile-per-hour fastball, the ball's going to go really far.
I think this is a sign of the times. I think launch angle, I think strikeouts, I think guys trying to hit the home run ball over the fence, I think that's all going to be emphasized here moving forward. I think that's the era that we're in across the sport.
I think the game is at its best when it has that element of hitting the ball and running. I think when it has that element and the home run becomes an occasional treat sprinkled in there, that's when the game is best.
Even with the totals that they're reaching now, nothing is automatic, and you sort of sit there and get thrilled like all over again every time somebody hits one.